Hey everyone, if you're listening, you're probably trying to figure out what your car accident case is worth.
Yeah.
It can be
Oh,
overwhelming.
it's a real jungle out there.
Yeah, especially with those medical bills stacking up and insurance companies hauling nonstop.
Mm-hmm.
So today we're doing a deep dive into a video from the Legal Strategist. It's called How Much is Your Car Accident Case Worth? And it breaks down all those factors that decide how much you could actually get.
Yeah. And there's a lot more to it than most people think.
Yeah, I was surprised. So let's get right into it. The video starts with factor one medical bills and how bad your injuries are.
Right.
And it seems pretty obvious worse injuries mean bigger medical costs, and that means you could get more money.
Right.
But I thought the example in the video was really eye-opening. They showed like an ambulance ride and then going to the ER and then needing surgery.
Yeah.
And they said that could easily cost over $50,000.
Yeah. It really puts things into perspective when you see those numbers.
It does.
And it's important to remember, it's not just about what you've already paid. You know,
Right.
what about future medical needs?
Oh, yeah. Like, what if you need physical therapy for a long time?
Exactly. Or maybe even another surgery down the road. You have to think about all of
That's
that.
true. You need to see the full picture. So
Mhm.
that means you got to keep track of everything, right? Every bill, every prescription.
Oh, absolutely. Think of it like building a wall around your case. Every little piece of paper, every receipt, it all becomes a brick in that wall. Without those, you're in trouble.
And I'm guessing insurance companies, they know how to find those weak spots.
Oh, yeah. Let's just say their goal is to pay out as little as possible.
Right, that's
They have
correct.
ways of doing that. And that's why all that documentation is your secret weapon. It gives you power when you're trying to get what you deserve.
So it's not just about knowing your rights, it's about being able to prove them.
Exactly. And that brings us to factor two, which often gets missed, lost wages.
Right.
If you can't work because of your injuries, even for a little bit, that lost income is a real loss.
Yeah, the video had this formula. It said you multiply your salary by the number of days you missed work.
Mm-hmm. It's a good place to start, but sometimes it's more complicated than that.
How so?
Well, what if your pay is based on commission? Or maybe you were about to get a promotion, but you missed out because of the accident. Those potential earnings are important, too.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. So how do you prove you lost wages? What documents do you need?
Well, pay stubs are a must, of course, and doctor's notes that say you couldn't work. But think even further, like what if your job is very physical, and now you can't do those things anymore?
Hmm.
You might need letters from specialists or job experts to back up your claim.
So it's all about showing the connection between the injury, the fact that you can't work, and the money you lost because of it.
It's like being a detective. You have to build your case, and you need evidence to prove your story.
Wow, this is way more complicated than I thought. And we haven't even talked about the emotional side of things yet.
You're right. Factor three is all about the things you can't really measure, the pain, the emotional trauma, how your life has changed. It gets a lot more subjective, wouldn't you say?
Totally. How do you even put a price tag on emotional distress?
Well, the video thoughts about this multiplier method. They say you multiply your medical bills by 1.5 to 5, depending on how bad your case is.
Okay, but
But it's not an exact science.
right. I was just thinking about that. A broken leg, it's a broken leg, but it affects people differently.
Exactly. Like a professional athlete with a broken leg faces different challenges than someone who sits at a desk all day.
Exact.
That's where the details matter. And that's why it's so important to have a good lawyer by your side.
Because they know how to deal with all the gray areas.
Yes, they can make sure the emotional impact is taken seriously.
Makes sense. Remember, those insurance companies are businesses.
Exactly.
They want to save money, so they might try to downplay your pain and suffering.
That's right.
So it's crucial to have someone who understands the law and can fight for you.
Absolutely. And that actually leads us perfectly into the next part of our deep dive. We talk about those three big factors, medical bills, lost wages, and all that pain and suffering. But that's just the beginning.
Right.
We need to talk about the evidence, the negotiation, and having a real plan for your case.
Okay, let's get into it.
Yeah, do it.
Okay, so we've talked about those three big things, medical bills, lost wages, and, all that pain and suffering. But just knowing how much your case could be worth, that's just the first step, right?
It's like the beginning of the story. You have to be able to back it up.
So what kind of evidence are we talking about? Like, what do you actually need?
Well, we already talked about medical records and all those bills.
Right.
That's your base. But think beyond that, too.
Okay.
Like the police report from the accident, that's really important.
Oh.
And pictures and videos
Oh, right.
of the scene, of the damage to the cars, even of your injuries. Those can make a huge difference.
Yeah, a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? But what about people who saw the accident? Witnesses?
Witness statements can be super important, especially if there's any question about who's at fault or how the accident happened.
Yeah.
If someone saw the other driver speeding or running a red light, that kind of testimony can really change things.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we've got documents, visuals, witnesses. What else? Oh, the video mentions social media. That
Yeah.
seemed kind of weird to me.
I know it sounds strange, but think about it. If you're posting about being in pain or how hard recovery is or how the accident messed up your life, those posts can actually be used as evidence.
Really?
They show how you're suffering.
So it's not just about the day of the accident, it's about showing how it affects you long term.
Exactly. But of course, you can't just make stuff up to help your case.
Right, that wouldn't work.
It has to be real. Your social media has to match up with all your evidence. It's about telling the truth, but in a way that people really understand.
Got it. So it's not about tricking anyone, it's about using every tool you have to tell your story.
Right? And that actually brings us to negotiation. Once you have all your evidence together,
Right.
then you got to deal with the insurance company.
Okay, so how do you do that? How do you even start that conversation?
Well, negotiation, that's where the strategy comes in. Remember, insurance companies are businesses. Their main goal is to pay out as little as possible.
Right.
Doesn't mean they're evil, but you have to understand that going in.
Okay, so how do you make sure things are fair?
Knowing your stuff, that's your biggest advantage. If you know how your case is valued and you have strong evidence, you can stand up to them. You know your worth, and you don't take any lowball offers.
Sounds like a poker game almost. Like you got to know when to hold them and when to fold them.
Haha, yeah, kind of. But what happens if you can't agree?
Right. What if they just won't budge?
That's when having a good lawyer makes all the difference. They know the law inside and out. They know how to build a strong case, and they're pros at negotiation. They can either get you a fair deal or be ready to take your case to court if they have to.
So it's like having an expert guide in a really complicated situation. They know all the dangers and how to get you through it safely.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. A good lawyer can see problems coming and figure out how to get around them. They're there to fight for you.
This is all making so much more sense now. It's not just about knowing what your case might be worth. It's about having the proof, the plan, and the right person on your side to help you get what you deserve.
Exactly. And remember, every case is different. What works for one person might not work for another. That's why getting advice that's specific to you is so important.
Okay, so speaking of advice, if you could give one piece of advice to someone who's just been in an accident and they're feeling overwhelmed by all of this, what would it be?
Don't panic. I know it's stressful. But remember, you're not alone. There are people who can help. And the more you learn about your rights and how things work, the better you'll be able to handle this. It's tough, but you can do it.
That's good advice. It's easy to feel lost and confused, but knowing there's help out there, that makes a big difference.
It really does. And even though getting legal help is super important, there's something else we haven't talked about yet, the emotional side of all this.
Oh, right. We've talked about money and legal stuff, but this whole thing can be really hard emotionally.
It is. Dealing with injuries, bills, insurance companies, it's a lot to handle. And sometimes you get so focused on fighting for compensation that you forget to take care of yourself.
So beyond getting that legal advice, what can people do to deal with, the emotional stuff?
Oh, that's so important. And you know what? Don't be afraid to ask for help. Therapists, counselors, support groups, they can give you a safe place to talk about your feelings and figure out how to cope.
Yeah, it's like you're taking care of your emotional injuries at the same time as the physical ones. Both are super important for healing.
Exactly. And don't forget about your friends and family. Talk to them. Do things you enjoy. And take care of yourself. Remember, this isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. You need to pace yourself.
That's a great reminder. It's easy to lose yourself in all this. So to recap, knowledge is power. Get legal help, and don't forget about your emotional well-being. Those are some really important things to remember.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to add one more thing. Remember, this experience doesn't define you. It's just one chapter in your story.
That's a great way to put it. So any final thoughts for our listeners? What's the one thing we want them to take away from all this?
I think it's this: don't let fear or not knowing what to do stop you from taking action. The sooner you start learning, getting advice, and building your case, the better you'll be able to handle things and get what you deserve.
That's such great advice. Knowing what to do really does make you feel more powerful. And remember, you don't have to go through this alone.
That's right. There are people and resources out there to support you. And it's been great talking about this with you.
Me too. We talked about a lot today. Those 3 key factors that tell you what your case might be worth and how important evidence negotiation and having a legal plan are. But what really hit home for me was how much the emotional part matters.
You're so right. It's easy to get caught up in the legal stuff and forget about the human side of it all.
So besides finding a good lawyer and building a strong case, what's the most important thing for someone to remember during this whole process?
This might sound cheesy, but be kind to yourself. You went through something really hard. And it's okay to not be okay. Let yourself feel your feelings. Ask for help when you need it. And don't try to rush the healing. It takes time for both your body and your mind.
It's such an important message. This isn't just a fight in court, it's a personal journey too. And sometimes the biggest win is the one you get inside yourself.
You said it. And remember, you are more than what happened to you. This is just one part of your story. It doesn't have to be the end.
I think that's a perfect note to end on. I hope this has been helpful for anyone who's been in an accident or knows someone who has.
It's been my pleasure to share these insights with you. Remember, knowledge is power. And even when things are tough, you can get through this and come out even stronger.
That's it for today's deep dive. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and most importantly, take care.